When people think of premium operating systems, macOS is usually the first name that comes to mind. Smooth animations, clean typography, tasteful blur effects, and that feeling that everything has been polished until it shines. For years, Linux was seen as powerful, flexible, and free, but rarely described as beautiful or premium. That perception is now completely outdated. In recent years, a new wave of Linux distributions has emerged that doesn't just match macOS in visual quality, but in many cases goes beyond it. These distros feel intentionally designed, carefully curated, and almost luxurious to use. They don't just look good for screenshots. They feel premium in daily use, in motion, in sound design, and in how thoughtfully everything fits together. The first thing that stands out when you boot into one of these modern Linux distros is how far the Linux desktop has evolved. Gone are the mismatched icons, awkward fonts, and clunky animations that once defined Linux for many users. Today, entire teams are focused on visual coherence. Icon packs are custom designed. Color palettes are chosen with restraint. Spacing, shadows, and motion are all deliberate. When windows open and close, they glide instead of snapping. When you switch workspaces, the transitions feel fluid and natural. This is not accidental. Linux desktops have entered an era where design is treated as a core feature, not an afterthought. Take a distro like Elementary OS, which has long been compared to macOS, but has now developed an identity that feels even more refined. The Pantheon desktop environment focuses obsessively on consistency. Every system app shares the same design language. Buttons are where you expect them to be. Animations are subtle but present, never distracting. The dock feels smooth and responsive, with just the right amount of bounce. Typography is carefully tuned so text feels readable and elegant at any size. Unlike macOS, which has grown visually busier over time with added features and layers, Elementary OS feels calm and intentional. It feels like a premium product designed to reduce visual noise rather than impress you with complexity. Then there's Zorin OS, which has transformed itself into one of the most visually striking Linux distros available. Zorin doesn't just aim to look modern, it aims to look expensive. The default theme uses soft gradients, frosted glass effects, and carefully balanced contrast. The desktop layout feels familiar to macOS users, but it also offers flexibility without sacrificing visual polish. Zorin's animations are smooth, and its window effects feel refined rather than flashy. The overall experience feels cohesive in a way that many operating systems struggle to achieve. When you open the settings panel, it doesn't feel like a collection of random toggles. It feels like a thoughtfully designed control center, similar to what you'd expect from a premium commercial OS. What truly elevates these Linux distros beyond macOS is the level of customization that doesn't break the aesthetic. On macOS, customization is limited. You get what Apple gives you, and while it's polished, it's rigid. On Linux, especially on these premium-focused distros, you can fine-tune almost everything while still maintaining a cohesive look. You can adjust window corner radius, blur intensity, animation speed, icon styles, and font rendering. And because these distros are designed with customization in mind, changes don't make the system feel hacked together. Instead, they feel like options the designers always intended you to use. Another standout is KDE-based distros like KDE Neon or Fedora KDE Spin when paired with modern themes. KDE Plasma has undergone a massive transformation in recent years. It is now one of the most visually advanced desktop environments available on any platform. With the right configuration, KDE Plasma feels incredibly premium. The transparency effects, the smoothness of animations, the way panels and widgets blend into the desktop, all contribute to an experience that feels futuristic and refined. Plasma's window management is also incredibly fluid. Snapping windows, switching virtual desktops, and managing activities feels fast and elegant. In many ways, it feels more advanced than macOS, especially for power users who want beauty without sacrificing control. Garuda Linux is another example of a distro that unapologetically embraces visual flair. It doesn't aim for minimalism in the same way macOS does. Instead, it goes for a bold, modern aesthetic that feels like a high-end gaming or creator workstation. Neon accents, animated effects, and custom themes make Garuda feel alive. Yet despite its bold look, it maintains consistency. Icons match the theme. Fonts are chosen to complement the overall style. Even system notifications feel integrated rather than intrusive. This is a distro that proves premium doesn't have to mean understated. It can also mean expressive and confident. One of the biggest differences between these Linux distros and macOS is how performance and visuals coexist. macOS often feels smooth because it runs on tightly controlled hardware. Linux distros, on the other hand, achieve smoothness through efficiency. Many of these premium-looking Linux systems run incredibly well even on older hardware. Animations don't stutter, windows don't lag. The system feels responsive even under load. That responsiveness contributes hugely to the perception of quality. A beautiful interface that lags feels cheap. A responsive interface, even with subtle animations, feels premium. Linux excels here. Sound design is another often overlooked aspect of a premium operating system, and modern Linux distros are catching up fast. System sounds are no longer harsh beeps or outdated chimes. They're soft, subtle, and pleasant. Notification sounds feel intentional rather than jarring. Volume changes and alerts blend into the background instead of demanding attention. This kind of sensory detail adds to the overall feeling that the system has been carefully crafted. Fonts also play a huge role in perceived quality, and Linux has made major strides here. Distros now ship with high-quality font rendering out of the box. Text looks sharp, balanced, and easy on the eyes. Whether you're reading long documents, coding for hours, or browsing the web, the typography feels refined. In some cases, Linux font rendering can even look better than macOS, especially on non-Apple hardware because it's tuned for flexibility rather than a single display type. Window management and multitasking is another area where Linux often feels more premium than macOS. Smooth workspace transitions, configurable gestures, and powerful tiling options make daily workflows feel effortless. On macOS, you often need third-party tools to achieve efficient window management. On Linux, it's often built in and beautifully integrated. When you swipe between workspaces or snap windows into place, the animations feel natural and responsive. This sense of flow contributes heavily to that premium feel. Privacy and control also add an intangible sense of quality. macOS looks premium, but it increasingly feels locked down. Linux distros, especially these modern ones, give you transparency and control without making you feel like you're managing a server. Updates are clear. System behavior is predictable. There are no sudden design changes forced on you by a corporation's vision shift. That sense of ownership makes the experience feel more personal and, in a way, more luxurious. Even installation experiences have improved dramatically. Modern Linux installers are clean, simple, and visually appealing. They guide you through the process without overwhelming you. Progress indicators are smooth. Language is friendly. This first impression matters. When the very first interaction with an OS feels polished, it sets expectations for everything that follows. Many Linux distros now deliver that premium first impression better than macOS, which assumes you're already invested in the ecosystem. App design on Linux has also leveled up. Thanks to frameworks like GTK and Qt, apps are more consistent than ever. Flatpak and Snap packaging allow developers to ship apps with their intended design intact. This reduces the mismatch between system and third-party apps that used to plague Linux. When your file manager, browser, music player, and system settings all feel like they belong together, the entire OS feels more premium. What's fascinating is that all of this has happened largely without massive marketing budgets or centralized control. Unlike Apple, which dictates design from the top down, Linux achieves this through community-driven iteration. Designers, developers, and users collaborate openly. Feedback is rapid. Improvements are continuous. This organic evolution has resulted in systems that feel genuinely refined, not because they're locked down, but because they've been shaped by people who actually use them daily. In many ways, these Linux distros don't just look more premium than macOS. They feel more modern. macOS is tied to legacy decisions, to backwards compatibility, to a single company's priorities. Linux is free to experiment. It can adopt new design trends quickly. It can refine ideas without waiting for a yearly release cycle. This agility shows in the final product. The desktops feel fresh, alive, and responsive to current expectations. There's also something deeply satisfying about using an operating system that looks this good and knowing it's free and open source. That knowledge adds a psychological layer to the premium experience. You're not just consuming a product. You're participating in an ecosystem. You can contribute feedback, customize your setup, or even modify the system itself. That sense of empowerment is something macOS can't offer, no matter how polished it looks. As more users migrate from Windows and macOS to Linux, expectations are rising. People want beauty, not just functionality. They want their system to feel good to use. Linux is meeting that demand in ways that few predicted a decade ago. Today, it's entirely possible to install a Linux distro, do zero customization, and end up with a desktop that feels more refined than macOS out of the box. And this is just the beginning. With technologies like Wayland improving animation smoothness, HDR support becoming more common, and designers paying more attention to micro-interactions, the gap will only widen. Linux desktops are no longer chasing macOS. They're defining their own vision of what a premium operating system can be. In the end, the idea that Linux is rough, ugly, or only for power users is no longer true. These modern Linux distros prove that open-source software can be elegant, luxurious, and visually stunning. They prove that premium doesn't require a locked ecosystem or expensive hardware. It requires care, intention, and a commitment to user experience. And right now, Linux is delivering all of that, sometimes even better than macOS itself.